Pantheon Rise of the Fallen is the latest in a long list of MMO saviors that people await on the horizon, but I think this one's really got a shot. With an effort to bring back the classic difficulty and challenge that made the genre so beloved, this spiritual successor to Everquest is trying to fill a niche that currently is held by private servers alone. It is me incredibly excited, and I'm extremely optimistic, but in this video I'll be going into the 5 reasons I'm still a little concerned it won't hit the mark. However, stay tuned until the end for the 5 ways I think Pantheon has each of these concerns covered, and if you haven't yet, don't forget to check out my video on the top 5 reasons I am excited for Pantheon in the description below. So hey guys, it's Hunt for Games, bringing you a healthy mix of videos on new releases in MMOs, and nostalgia trips to the classics that made us fall in love with games in the first place. And Pantheon's trying to capture that nostalgia with a brand new game, but let's get into where it might struggle, starting with the big one. For me, I'll always compare back to my big first MMO love, Final Fantasy XI, and that game which I fell in love with had unique gameplay elements like skill chains, and my worry is that Pantheon, will it have anything that sets itself apart from other games other than its classic difficulty niche that it's trying to fit in? I mean, I've been seeking a game to replace or surpass Final Fantasy XI since really the late 2000s, when I started to wonder whether or not I could keep playing that game and still enjoy myself. But one thing many online RPGs have barely even touched is that tight-knit person-to-person cooperation. I mean, skill chains in Final Fantasy XI relied on close timing and a complex mapping of elemental properties on weapon skills that I still don't truly understand, and then magic bursting on top of that was even more exciting. It was an amazing feeling to see skill chains come together time and time again in a party or explode for vicious damage in a critical fight. It wasn't something that could happen just by accident all that often. I mean, sure, you could fire off 2 weapon skills and that might make a skill chain, but then the timing had to be pretty good. You had to just hold on to your weapon skill and hope that somebody else was going to go soon, because for a while you couldn't see the other's TP. It was just kind of a unique system, and I've heard other games have had similar gameplay elements. Lord of the Rings Online apparently had something. Guild Wars 2 had that system where you'd set up like area of effects, and then you could, pierce or explode within that to create additional effects or damage. And that was cool, but it was all just kind of like on the fly. I was like, oh neat, I did that. And if you didn't do it, you're like, whatever. Skill chains were crucial. For many years of the game, if you weren't doing a skill chain, you were missing out on so much damage that your speed or chance of success against a difficult boss would be crippled. I'm talking about Final Fantasy XI a lot here, but that's what I'm saying is I loved that system, and it's one thing that kept me in Final Fantasy XI for years and years. My worry is that Pantheon will try to be like that classic MMO so much that it won't try to bring in anything new in terms of how to cooperate with other players. Many MMOs over the years are about being the best you can be while being surrounded by others, but not necessarily tightly coordinating with them and what they're doing beyond just like a fight this right now or everyone dodge this mechanic. Will Pantheon have anything beyond that? I'm not really sure. I mean, coming as a spiritual successor to Everquest, I've been trying to get a feel for whether or not that was crucial in that game, and I just can't quite tell. There were certainly ways that classes could complement each other. I mean, different ways to pull enemies in a dangerous situation safely or enduring damage while holding hate, but direct fight-to-fight coordination between specific players, I'm not really sure. I'm curious to see how they tackle this one. But number 2, this game is striving to fit a different niche than most modern games. I mean, taking longer to do standard activities like travel, questing, and just more difficulty in general, which means more deaths and more chasing after your body afterwards, which is just time. But with my newer schedule and how life is these days, there's that constant fear that this game won't be made for me, but it will be for others. Final Fantasy XI was a time sink. I mean, there's no 2 ways about it, and I loved that. I loved it at the time. I enjoyed spending time running around while cooking dinner, like prepping myself for an activity I would do later while watching TV, while doing homework, while studying. Who knows what I was doing, but you could just like kind of set yourself to doing prep work, inventory management, running around, and then the fun stuff would happen when you had free time. Seeking party while playing another game entirely. I would play multiple games while playing Final Fantasy XI. But that was when I knew I had 4 to 5 hours to sit and enjoy a game like that, so whether I got a party immediately or much later wasn't really critical. I crave that difficulty, that far-reaching world where travel is a choice that has meaning, but what if that just doesn't fit me anymore? I mean, it certainly is a niche that needs to be filled, but is it my niche? I don't know. I think it's something I want to try, but my worry is after like 2 weeks of this, I'd be like, guys, I just don't have time. This is ridiculous. But that isn't to say that this game shouldn't be made in that way. I'm just worrying that it's not for me. But my experience with Final Fantasy XI on private servers has shown me that it can be tough. I mean, no matter how much I want it to fit that kind of experience into my lifestyle now, is difficult. That's of course not a challenge for them to not make this game. My fear, of course, is that once it's made, I realize that it's amazing and also just not for me, and I'll have to pass it up. Leading us to number 3, which is conversely that many games have said they want to take on a more classic style game, and then they cave to a demographic that doesn't truly want that. The nature of the game changes, and then both groups, the one that wants the classic and the one that wants a newer style of game, both end up feeling let down by the result, and the game just fails. That opposite of what I just said before about it being too difficult for me to even engage in is just as bad. I mean, players like myself that are thrilled about the direction the game is going could be worried they won't be able to enjoy it if it's just too classic. If the developers cave to those concerns, for instance, if I'm emailing them every day saying like, guys, it can't be too long because then I can't play. And then they listen to me. I'm not doing that, by the way, but if I did, I mean, that's happened before. Like, the game could become a middle ground that pleases no one. I certainly appreciate that they've been outspoken about trying to get a feel for what the community really wants, what's important to us as players. They went on a huge Twitter campaign like 2 weeks ago where every day they were asking about different kind of concepts, just to get a feel for the community reaction. But having said that, I hope they stay true to their vision. To quote the famous "you think you do but you don't" from World of Warcraft, we as players once thought that all the conveniences in the world would make games infinitely better and more approachable. While they've become more digestible in smaller doses, I think most would agree that they haven't necessarily become better. We often miss that classic style, and it's why games like Pantheon are now, attempting to fill a niche that no longer is supported. The devs are trying to do something unique, at least unique for 2019, and taking in too much input can sometimes threaten the original design. So to sum that all up, my fear would be that they cave too much to a group or a certain response to what this game is trying to do by a group of people that this game really isn't meant for. Bringing us to number 4, I hope that there are ways character skills can build on each other, and if not, will the style be enough for me? For instance, are there ways that I can support specific classes with my abilities and craft an ability set around that? In Final Fantasy XI, a ranger and a thief may not go well together because of how they both interacted with an enemy and position-wise and things like that, but a thief and a warrior or dark knight could do incredible things. Now, with Pantheon's focus on a limited set of active skills, you could have a similar concept without limiting it by class, but by ability. This, of course, is a tough one to balance, but my passion for how similar things have been achieved make me want it anyway. Some of the best feeling in MMO is that feeling that you are uniquely useful and suited to a task. If you can build on that feeling with another player, it just compounds it into this feeling of joy and group achievement. With different classes being able to actively support one another, skill chains are the biggest examples of this in Final Fantasy XI, but even concepts like pulling or hate management, lending certain combinations to complement each other nicely. I mean, this kind of stuff I think is crucial to an MMO, but not all MMOs have had this. The danger, of course, is that if this is too strong, only certain classes are desired, at least in tandem, and then other classes kind of get left behind. Like say you've got most of the party set up and you really only need one more. If you can't find that one, those 4 people are upset because they're not really playing anything. And somebody might be seeking a party, say like, why not me? And you're like, oh well, you don't work well with our setup. But with Pantheon's 8 skill limit system, skills themselves could fit more of this intent, and you would just build yourself around the party dynamic that currently exists by selecting skills that complement, the other classes that are in the group. This could give players the feeling that they're intently working together, building a party that's successful without feeling like a single job is required at the expense of any other. Now, I've said all that in a super excited way of all the things they could do and what I'm hoping they do based on the things that I've heard about how Pantheon's being built. Again, my fear is that none of that's true, that you still need specific classes, or that, even worse, it doesn't really matter what you have, that the classes don't feel unique at all and everything can just kind of blend together and nobody really has to work together, and it's more what modern MMOs have strived to do, where anybody can fit into anything else and you just kind of do things on it. If you do your job well and everybody else kind of does their own thing, then you guys will all succeed. Like, I want there to be that deep class-to-class, person-to-person cooperation and influence on each other and how you're performing in a group setting. But at the same time, balance that with the expectation that sometimes, the perfect class as we're used to it might not be available. So how can players rebuild themselves to kind of fill, maybe in a group way, that missing requirement. I kind of babble for a little bit, but you know what I'm saying. I mean, that's a big one for me. And if they can't really achieve that, I think this game's gonna struggle. But number 5, this is kind of a big one. Charm, just general charm. Final Fantasy XI drew me in with its gameplay concepts and Final Fantasy tie-ins, but it kept me with its lore, story, the music, the beautiful world. I mean, Vana'diel truly became a world I enjoyed being a part of and wanted to be in. Pantheon could be the best game in the world with all the gameplay elements I've been striving for and fun, unique class design. But if I ultimately just don't jive with the game world, will I even want to stay? I mean, will I play for a few months and be like, that was a lot of fun, but I'm done? I mean, if the characters I engage with, you know, NPC wise, seem flat and the story's uninteresting, can it hold my attention on gameplay alone? Maybe it can. But Final Fantasy XI, as like an example, I was heavily influenced by the entirety of the game. And if it wasn't for the entirety of the game and everything else it had to offer, I don't think I would have played as long as I did. So something to be concerned about. I certainly hope that they can really drive home an incredible, you know, story and background and lore and interesting aspects of the world itself that make me want to continue to be a part of it beyond just the fun gameplay. Because there's going to come a time and a moment where I'm like, oh man, I'm tired of casting this healing spell over and over again. But I'm willing to do it because I love being in this game. Now, those are my 5 concerns, but I've kind of delved into it a little bit throughout the video. How do I think that Pantheon has all of these covered? Honestly, number 1, with my fear that it won't separate itself, there's the obvious answer of there's nothing else like it in the market right now. I mean, but as that's kind of a cop-out, I also think that developers are really striving to make this game something special and not just a recreation of what Everquest used to be. There's admission that Everquest had room to grow, especially in the 20 years since its conception, and they're attempting to evolve what it attempted, not just to replicate it. As for number 2, I actually covered this briefly in my top 5 exciting reasons video. The developers recognize that in some way, time sinks in-game can restrict players' ability to play with each other. While they're still intent on capturing that large world feel, they're exploring options of how players could possibly tackle some of these distance challenges offline in preparation for an upcoming play session. I mean, these kind of ideas could really change how we play a game like Pantheon. If I can set my character to start traveling before I even log on from like work or something, because we're all planning to do something once we get home, then as soon as we get home, we can hop right in and start doing it. The travel has already happened. Now, once we're there, yeah, it might take a while for us to get back, and that's fine. That's important in a game like this. But it doesn't stop me from engaging in the activity that I knew was coming, like the whole day. As for number 3, I mean, honestly, all I can say is that they seem to know what they want and that they're trying to get there. As for number 3, that they won't stay true to their vision, I mean, well, to be honest, all I can say is that they seem to really know what they want and they're trying to get there. The genre is awash with fast-paced, button-mashing gameplay, and while some voices have cropped up saying that Pantheon gameplay looks boring and repetitive, the devs seem to remain true to their vision of a slower, more classical style game, and I think that's great. That's all I can really say is I hope they stay true to that, and I think they will, but it's certainly something to be concerned about. As for number 4, that my fear that classes won't build upon each other, I just have to look back to their core tenets. I mean, they want this game to be centered around group gameplay, with support classes making a glorious return to the mix. The idea that each class excels in one area, say damage or tanking, and almost minors in another, like you have a minor degree in like healing or support, seems to suggest that this kind of interconnected gameplay between players will be crucial and a core aspect of what Pantheon's trying to do. We won't know until we get our hands on it, but while this fear remains, I'm hopeful that they know what they're doing. I just have to hope the developers are staying true to their vision and actually achieving what they're saying. Number 5, I mean, charm. This one's tough. Charm is a tough one to grab. I mean, you can miss it by the barest of tiny differences in music or how you achieve ambiance or how you deliver lore in a game. I mean, that one's a really tough one to deliver. And having a world that grabs its players and never lets go is the most difficult task a game can have. Everquest drew in a fan base like few other games have though, and never let most of them go. So I'm hopeful that they can do the same with Pantheon. But guys, let me know your thoughts. Are these fears some that strike a nerve with you as well, or do you think that the devs have it covered? And is this the MMO that'll finally shake up the stale formula that the genre is currently plagued with? Keep on the lookout for more Pantheon videos in the future. Despite the concerns I've raised in this one, I'm truly excited for this game's release. I really am. I don't want this video to come across like oh, Hunter's not supporting Pantheon anymore. I'm heavily supporting Pantheon. These are just the things that, I'm looking out for as those kind of warning red flags. But otherwise, guys, keep on the lookout for more videos like this one, and I'll see you guys all in the next one. Peace. Thanks for watching. If you're interested in more videos like this, think about subscribing. And if you already have, don't forget to click that little bell next to the sub button to get notified when new videos go live. Hit me up in the comments with your thoughts on this video, or come hang out and chat with me on Twitch every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And definitely look me up on Twitter or Instagram and Hunt for Games to keep up with what else I've got going on. See ya.